Okay, we're up to section number 158. Judas arrives to betray Christ. And so we have question 908. How did Judas demonstrate that people do know their guilt? And this is going to be based on Matthew 26:47 and John 18:3. It says, "And while he yet spake, lo, Judas, one of the 12, came, and with him a great multitude with swords and staves from the chief priests and elders of the people." And then John 18:3, "Judas then, having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, cometh hither with lanterns and torches and weapons." Okay, and so the answer that you would have gotten by a little bit of thinking about this is C. He came with a big and biased crowd to back him up. A big and biased crowd. For A, he kept arguing, or he came quietly. Well, when people argue seemingly excessively, as in A, they might be demonstrating guilt, protesting too much. You've ever heard the phrase, "Methinks he protested too much"? Comes from, anybody remember where? From Hamlet. From Hamlet. Because he thought that I believe it was his father, or I'm sorry, his stepfather, was it whoever his mother married, I think.
She married his uncle.
Okay, and he, really protested. "Oh, I didn't do anything." He's like, "Oh yeah, I think you're protesting too much. You're trying too hard to cover up." Or, as in B, they might actually be just passionate about their argument. Okay, when somebody comes quietly without overkill, as in B, they are more likely assuming their arguments will carry them because their cause is just the opposite. Because their cause is just the opposite. They might be quiet because they have a weak argument or cause. So it's a whole mixture there. But Judas used another tactic when people feel guilty. They will passionately defend themselves and back themselves up with as many sources and people as they can get to overpower you. They do it to overpower you. Now, I have to say that sometimes you want to have a lot of sources that are good sources to be able to also overpower an argument, but people will get bad sources and hope that that carries the day. We've known people that are online who will argue passionately for some stupid false doctrine, but what they do is they start pulling quotes all over the place. It's a technique we call flooding. They pour out all kinds of things, and you're so caught up trying to defend one of them that you get overwhelmed with them. But here, it's even worse. He's got this whole crowd that's biased to be able to try to cover for him, so to speak, in this case. Okay, question 909, how did Judas know where to find Jesus? This is based on John 18:2, "And Judas also, which betrayed him, knew the place, for Jesus oft times resorted thither with his disciples." So the answer is C. Judas was such an intimate part of the inner circle of Jesus that he knew exactly where he would find him. And so you look at A, B, and C all together. Jesus had told him earlier, or Judas had a spy to keep an eye on Jesus. Well, Judas did not have to resort to some means that had any chance for failure, like having a spy or depending on whatever, because he was all too familiar with what Jesus would do. This is what makes it so much more painful when we are betrayed, because it usually takes someone who has worked with us to have the opportunity to know us so well in order to betray us. Okay, that intimate circle there, that's what that speaks of there. 910, how did Judas point Jesus out? It's based on Mark 14:44 and Luke 22:48. "And he that betrayed him had given them a token, saying, Whomsoever I shall kiss, that same is he. Take him and lead him away safely." In Luke 22:48, "But Jesus said unto him, Judas, betrayest thou the Son of Man with a kiss?" The answer we got is B. Yes, he gave him a kiss, indicating how close he was to him. Miss Nancy.
Can you repeat that first scripture passage?
Yes, that was Mark 14:44.
And the second one?
Luke 22:48. Okay. When you look at C, he had given the Jews a description on how to identify him. Well, remember that Judas had agreed with the Jewish leaders that he would be ready to accuse Jesus, which required that he not just leave the matter in the hands of others. Okay, when you are accusing somebody like that and making that kind of an accusation, you have to be there to back it up. He couldn't just send somebody else. I mean, even if he had described him and sent them out there to find him, would not really be sufficient. Not that the Jewish leaders or Judas or anybody was doing things all fairly anyhow, but the pressure was on him to be there. If you're going to betray him and make an accusation, you've got to make it yourself. For A, he brought others who could help identify him. Well, he did not need others to help identify Jesus, but having others along with him certainly put him on the spot to perform. So just by having others with him, that was not how he was going to point him out. He didn't really need that, but again, it bolsters him up that he's got people to support him. So B, he gave him a kiss indicating how close he was to him. Judas could have simply pointed at Jesus and declared that he was the one they were to arrest. Using a typical Middle Eastern greeting kiss aggravated the betrayal. It was adding insult to injury. Also, it showed a certain kind of cowardice in that he could technically appear to the other disciples that he wasn't betraying Jesus. He could look like, oh, see, I'm just coming up with you. He didn't come necessarily just pointing straight at him there. It's like he's kind of covering for himself. He's being cowardly about this. And there's a lesson in this for those who betray churches on various levels. They seem like they are one with others and feigning concern for the ministry while they are undermining the work by gossiping, and what is worse because it's more common, criticizing. They seem like they're for you and that they're trying to be all, oh, I'm just concerned about the church, you know. No, what they're doing is they're trying to tear things down. They might not, and I gotta allow for the possibility they don't even realize that's what their heart is about. They are thinking that they're being very noble in their criticism, but really what's going on is that rebellious nature. When somebody goes to criticize, criticizing things, there is a positive way that you can do that. You know how you have different connotations for words? You could call something burgundy, or you could call it bloody. Okay, depends on what you're going to call something, right? Okay, well, criticism, there is another word that means the same thing, but in a positive way. And nobody's going to be able to guess what I'm thinking. The word is volunteer. Okay, if somebody sees that there's something wrong, that is tantamount to being a volunteer and saying, I'm here to help out. Somebody shouldn't criticize unless they've got a solution that they can help bring about. Okay, many times the things that are able to be criticized are there because, you know, sometimes we're just understaffed, we're just underhelped and underfunded and under this and under that, and people need to realize, well, if they can't volunteer, they shouldn't be so critical either, necessarily. Then there are those who, by their unreliability, damage the ministry. And they will also claim that they love their church, but not being reliable, not being able to be counted on, it's damaging. So betrayal comes in many loving flavors. Everybody's saying, oh, they just love their church and that's what they're about. No, it's forms of betrayal. I thought it was really nice. I think this was last Sunday, I think it was when we had the Jews for Jesus in. It was so nice. We had a need for one of the microphones because I was sitting up here, and Aruna just jumped up. You know, he's just a new member, and he saw the need, just got up and got the microphone and did his thing to help take it out and around the congregation there. And I thought that was great. That's the attitude we should have. There's a need, step up to it. Okay, question 911. When the Jews did not take Jesus right away, what did he do? This is based on John 18, 4 and 7. John 18, verses 4 and 7. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth and said unto them, whom seek ye? Verse 7, then asked he them again, whom seek ye? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. So when the Jews did not take Jesus right away, what did he do? He prodded them by asking them who they sought. Okay. He didn't take advantage of the moment and escape. He did not try to hide. Yet Jesus did more than permit himself to be taken. This is how intent he was to fulfill God's will, the Father's will. He did not hide or take advantage of their inaction. Instead, he actually assisted them in their mission. 912, when Jesus identified himself, what did the men do? This is verse 6, John 18, 6. As soon then as he had said unto them, I am he, they went backward and fell to the ground. The answer is B. They were overpowered by his presence and fell back. Okay, they didn't make sure he said he was who he said he was, as in A, or they didn't present a show of force and roughly take him into custody. The fact that they did not proceed either by trying to confirm who he was or by taking him to custody should speak of Jesus' further innocence. Their heart was not totally into what they were doing. Instead, they were really overpowered by the presence of Christ. If he had not been ordained to go to the cross, things could have potentially gone far differently in this. Okay. Let me get this on silent. There you go. Okay, how did Jesus protect his disciples? This is based on John 18, 8 and 9. Jesus answered, I have told you that I am he. If therefore you seek me, let these go their way, that the saying might be fulfilled which he spake of them, which thou gavest me, have I lost none. Okay, so how did Jesus protect his disciples? A, he told the Jews to take him and let the others go. Okay, not as in B, he told his disciples to take out their swords and fight. No, he told them to take a sword, but it was not to. He was not going to have them actually fight. And then he told the Jews they did not know who the others were, so they could escape. No, they were just going to go on themselves. So for B, he had told disciples to be armed, but it was not his intention that they fight on his behalf. And then C, although Jesus was going to be denied by the apostles to save themselves, Jesus was not going to deny them to save them. Instead, Jesus merely put the focus on himself. Okay, question 914. What did Jesus do when the disciples tried to fight? This is based on Matthew 26, verses 51 to 54. And behold, one of them which were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck a servant of the high priest and smote off his ear. Then said Jesus unto him, Put up again thy sword into his place, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then shall the scriptures be fulfilled, that thus it must be? So the answer is A. He healed the servant who got hurt, reminded the disciples that he could have 12 legions of angels fight for him if he really wanted to escape. Okay, so looking at A, B, and C all together, Jesus could have put up a fight, as in B and C, to encourage them to fight and give them the strength of 12 army legions. He could have done that. He could have left being dragged away by the disciples while the disciples fled. But as the God of the universe, he had numerous legions of angels at his disposal. However, he not only was not aggressive or passive in what was happening, he was proactive in the demonstration of his mission and character, in that he healed the servant who had his ear cut off. Okay, it was not just passive, letting things go on, being dragged away, and he could have called the legions of angels, but no, he was again intent upon going off to that mission. Question 915, how did Jesus explain that he was no threat to the Jews? And this is based on the same verse. The answer that we got is C. He pointed out that he'd been a meek person teaching in front of them many days and never presented himself as a thief who needed swords and staves with him. Okay, actually, we're going to give that a different verse.
Matthew 26.
Yeah, that'll work. Matthew 25, we'll say 56, both of them really, both parts. And then also, yeah.
Sorry, did you say 25? Matthew 25?
Let me see. 26. Yeah, I said 25. It is 26. Verse 55. Okay, I got my 5s and 6 crossed. Then we're also going to say Luke 22. 52 and 53. Okay, let's read those then. Okay, this is the Luke passage. Then Jesus said unto the chief priests and captains of the temple and the elders which were coming to him, Be ye come out as against a thief with swords and staves? When I was daily with you in the temple, you stretched forth no hands against me, but this is your hour and the power of darkness. And then the Matthew passage, Matthew 26:55. In the same hour said Jesus to the multitudes, Are you come out against a thief with swords and staves for to take me? I sat daily with you teaching in the temple, and you laid no hold on me. So they had the teachings there. So the answer is C. That's right, we just mentioned that. He pointed out been a meek person teaching in front of them. They had everything to go on. When you look at A and B along with it, he pointed out that he was a very weak person, or he pointed out that he had told his troops to stand down. No, he went by the testimony that they had of him. He was not a threat, not because he was weak who needed an army to protect him. He had been all along only providing a message that resonated or not with people. If it worked or not, that was all with them. His track record was well established. We need to present ourselves as just people with a message that we are happy to leave in people's hands to do with as they will. We present no threat, but just invite people to come and live in God's grace with us. There is a mistake that Christians have made in the past when they get to the point where they are free to live according to their consciences before God. As Thomas Armitage in History of the Baptists quoted from the time when the Puritans first came to the New World, the Puritans came to this country to worship God according to their own consciences and to prevent other people from worshiping him according to theirs. That was the way he put it. No, we just put the message out there. People are free to take it or not. And then finally with question 916, what did the disciples do after they bound Jesus and took him away? And I don't have the scripture reference for this one written down here.
B.
Okay, it is B. They fled and deserted him.
Matthew 26:56.
Okay. Matthew 26:56.
or Mark 14:50.
Mark 14. We want to say 50 and 50 to 52. Okay, because there's something interesting in there. Okay, Matthew 26:56 says, "But all this was done, that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples forsook him and fled." And then Mark 14:50 and 52, "They all forsook him and fled, and there followed him a certain young man having a linen cloth cast about his naked body. And the young men laid hold on him, and he left the linen cloth and fled from them naked." So the answer is B, they fled and deserted him. Okay, when you look at A, they went home to discuss how they could rescue Jesus. Well, discussing how to rescue Jesus is obviously not what they did, but this is almost exactly what some think they need to do today. The Christian message is actually very direct and can be lived with not many basic principles. Churches that are not effectively using those principles treat the Jesus of their fathers as if he needed to be rescued by new and modern thinking. They do this even to the point where truth is relative and will go so far as to vote on what truth is. Okay, discussing, well, how we're going to rescue Jesus today is kind of what churches do, and they will try to win people with all kinds of worldly means, and thinking that the gospel needs a little bit of help. Well, they did not do that. We should not do that either. Okay, when you look at B and C, they fled and deserted him, or they went with him to the judgment of the cross. They did what they discovered about themselves, that they were fallible and weak and capable of deserting Christ. Okay, they did not go with him to the judgment and the cross. Now, what's interesting about this is that the young man is understood by many commentators to be Mark, the writer of the gospel. One of the things that sometimes happened, like when John was writing, he did not refer to himself by name in his own gospel. He was referred to as the disciple whom Jesus loved. Okay, and Mark writing this gospel, it's understood that he was giving a testimony about himself. He's the young man who fled, leaving his coat behind. He kind of reminds you, he's the anti-Joseph. Joseph fled sin, Mark fled righteousness, leaving coats behind. Okay, let me ask if there's anything else. Yes, Brother Tone.
In John's Gospel, we notice that the phrase "I am He," He is in italics, which means it's not present in the original. And when he says "I am," that's what triggered the force by which this arresting him went backwards. They fell backwards. We remember when the pre-incarnate Jesus spoke to Daniel, and Daniel was prostrate by just hearing God's word. The same is every time they hear the word "I am" in the case of Moses, there's always a force that makes man adopt a worshipful, either a worshipful posture or a defeated posture, which is backwards.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look that up and see a little bit more of that. But yeah, that is interesting. If he's saying "I am," it's kind of like Jehovah God before Moses, "I am," and you got to take your shoes off your feet, and the effect it has on people when they encounter Christ that way. That would be interesting.
Saying you are treading on sacred ground.
Right, treading on sacred ground. Your mic didn't work on that. Treading on sacred ground, Moses.